The sandstone walls of the Temple of Hathor glowed a soft gold under the flickering torchlight. Shadows danced across the intricate carvings, their shapes hinting at mysteries lost to time. Menna, a young priestess, traced her fingers over a particular set of engravings, a curious relief that had captivated her since childhood. It depicted what seemed to be a giant bulb, with a serpent coiling inside, held aloft by human hands. Around it, figures bowed in reverence, their faces frozen in awe. Menna, called a familiar voice. It was her mentor, priestess Anhotep. The temple's archives will not organize themselves. Startled, Menna pulled her hand away as though the carvings had burned her. I'll be there shortly, Anhotep. The older priestess hesitated, her eyes narrowing as she noticed Menna's preoccupation. The carvings of the Dendera Light. Again? It is not wise to dwell on ancient tales. They often hide more danger than wisdom. Menna nodded dutifully but remained fixated on the mysterious depiction long after Anhotep left. Something about it called to her. That night, Menna crept back to the temple's inner sanctum. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of lotus blossoms from the nearby Nile. Armed with a small oil lamp and her notes, she approached the carvings. She ran her fingers along the grooves, noting the peculiar details, too precise, too deliberate. Her lamp's light glinted off a faint seam in the wall she had never noticed before. Pressing her ear to the stone, she heard a faint hum, almost like the buzzing of trapped bees. Is it true, then? She whispered, recalling the half-forgotten legends Anhotep had dismissed as mere fables. Summoning her courage, Menna pressed firmly against the seam. A soft click echoed, and a section of the wall slid inward, revealing a narrow passage descending into darkness. Heart pounding, she stepped inside. The air grew colder the deeper she ventured, her lamp's glow barely illuminating the cramped corridor. The passage opened into a chamber unlike any Menna had seen. The walls shimmered faintly, as though embedded with stars. At the center, a pedestal bore a crystalline object shaped eerily like the bulb in the carvings. The light of Hathor, she breathed. As she approached, the artifact pulsed faintly, illuminating the chamber in a soft, golden glow. It was mesmerizing, yet something about its power felt overwhelming, almost alive. She reached out hesitantly. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, a surge of warmth coursed through her, flooding her mind with visions, a swirling cascade of images she could barely comprehend. Figures cloaked in light descending from the sky, the construction of the temple, and a warning: use wisely, or suffer the wrath of the gods. Menna's discovery did not remain secret for long. Anhotep noticed her distracted demeanor and followed her one night, catching her returning from the hidden chamber. You fool, Anhotep hissed when Menna revealed the artifact. Do you understand what you've done? The Dendera Light is not a relic to be trifled with. It is a gift from the gods, but also a curse. But it can help our people. Menna protested. Its power could light entire cities, save us from endless toil in the dark. Isn't that what Hathor would want? Anhotep's face darkened. Power always comes with a price. And now, others will seek it. Her warning proved prophetic. Within days, whispers spread through the temple. High Priest Posea, a man known for his ambition, confronted Menna. I know what you've found, he declared, his voice a blend of accusation and triumph. The light belongs to the temple, and to Egypt's rulers. Not to a naive girl. It belongs to no one. Menna shot back, her defiance masking her fear. Posea's eyes gleamed with cunning. Perhaps. But if you do not surrender it, others less merciful than I will come for it. Menna realized she could not protect the artifact alone. With Anhotep's reluctant help, she devised a plan to hide it deeper within the temple's labyrinthine underbelly. But the factions vying for control grew bolder. One night, Menna awoke to screams and the clash of steel. Posea's loyalists had stormed the temple, demanding the artifact. You brought this upon us, Anhotep accused as they fled through the hidden passageways. I only wanted to help, Menna whispered, clutching the artifact tightly. They reached a concealed chamber where Menna placed the artifact in a complex mechanism, a safeguard left by the ancient builders. With a series of levers, the artifact sank into the floor, its light extinguishing. "You've hidden it well," Anhotep said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "But it won't stay hidden forever." The temple descended into chaos. Poseidon's forces seized control, but without the artifact, his ambitions faltered. Menna and Anhotep were captured and brought before him. "Where is it?" he demanded. Menna remained silent, her resolve unshaken. "The light is not meant to be wielded by the likes of you." Poseidon's fury was palpable. "Then you will die for your insolence." Before he could carry out his threat, a sudden tremor shook the temple. The ground beneath them glowed faintly, and the walls emitted the same hum Menna had heard before. The artifact was responding. The chamber they stood in began to collapse, forcing everyone to flee. Menna and Anhotep found themselves in the hidden chamber once more, the artifact now glowing with an intensity that was blinding. "It's awakening," Anhotep realized, her voice trembling. "The gods are angry." As the artifact pulsed, Menna felt the same surge of warmth and visions as before. This time, they were clearer, a warning that the light was never meant to be a tool of power, but a test of humanity's worthiness. "If we leave it here, it will destroy the temple," Menna realized. "But if we take it, it will corrupt whoever possesses it." Anhotep met her gaze. "Then we must find a way to seal it away, forever." Together, they activated the ancient mechanism, which began to collapse the chamber around the artifact. As they fled, Menna glanced back one last time, the golden glow fading as the mechanism buried the artifact beneath layers of stone. They emerged into the dawn light, the temple behind them reduced to ruins. "Will it remain safe?" Menna asked. "For now," Anhotep replied. "But others will always seek its power. The secret of the Dendera Light is a heavy burden, and now it rests with us." Though the temple was in ruins, Menna vowed to preserve its legacy. She recorded her experiences in a hidden scroll, warning future generations of the dangers of the Dendera Light. As she finished her account, she gazed at the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight broke through the darkness. The light of Hathor was never meant to illuminate the world, but to test its heart. Someday, someone will find it again. Perhaps then, humanity will be ready. Unbeknownst to Menna, fragments of the artifact's energy had seeped into the Nile, causing strange phenomena downstream. Travelers spoke of glowing waters and crops growing unnaturally fast. Whispers of a new power began to spread, drawing the attention of those who would seek to exploit it. The story of the Dendera Light was far from over. The sun hung low over the Nile, its reflection rippling in the river's calm waters. Menna, now older and more cautious, lived quietly in a modest home near the ruins of the Temple of Hathor. Years had passed since she had sealed the Dendera Light, and though life had settled into an uneasy peace, whispers of strange occurrences downstream reached her ears. "Glowing waters," said a merchant in the market. "Crops that grow faster than they should. It's a blessing from Hathor, surely." Menna felt a chill at the merchant's words. She had hoped the light's influence would remain buried. But now, it seemed its power was seeping into the world once more. That night, unable to sleep, Menna unrolled the ancient scroll she had written after the artifact's burial. The warning she had penned years ago now felt more urgent than ever. "It is calling again," she whispered to herself. The next morning, Menna made her way back to the ruins of the temple. The once grand structure was now overgrown with weeds and vines, its glory hidden beneath the weight of time. She found Anhotep there, tending to a small shrine they had built to honor Hathor. "You feel it too," Anhotep said without looking up. Menna nodded. "The light's power is spreading. I fear it will draw attention from those who would misuse it." Their fears were realized sooner than expected. By nightfall, a group of men arrived at the ruins, led by a figure cloaked in darkness. High Priest Poseidon, thought to have perished in the collapse, had returned, his ambition undimmed by the passage of years. "I knew you couldn't keep it hidden forever," Poseidon sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You survived." Menna gasped. "Barely," Poseidon replied, pulling back his hood to reveal scars etched across his face. And I have spent every moment since seeking the power you tried to deny me. Now, I will claim it. Before Menna or Anhotep could react, Poseus' men seized them, forcing them to lead the way to the hidden chamber. The hidden chamber had changed since Menna last saw it. The walls pulsed faintly, as though the artifact's power was straining against its containment. Poseus approached the buried mechanism with a triumphant grin. You should thank me, he said. With the light, Egypt will no longer be at the mercy of the gods. We will become gods ourselves. No. Menna cried, struggling against her captors. You don't understand. The light isn't a gift, it's a test. Its power will consume you. Poseus ignored her, pulling a lever that reactivated the ancient mechanism. The ground shook, and the artifact emerged, glowing brighter than ever. As Poseus reached for it, the chamber was flooded with light, blinding everyone. When the light dimmed, Poseus stood frozen, his hand hovering above the artifact. His eyes widened with terror as the artifact began to pulse erratically. What is happening? He stammered. An ancient voice, resonant and powerful, echoed through the chamber. You seek to wield what you do not understand. The unworthy will be judged. The artifact's glow intensified, enveloping Poseus in a searing beam of light. He screamed as his form dissolved into nothingness, leaving only silence behind. Menna and Anhotep, still trembling from the spectacle, approached the artifact cautiously. It pulsed gently now, its light softer and more inviting. It is testing us again, Anhotep said. But why? Menna stepped forward, her heart pounding. When her fingers touched the artifact, the warmth returned, and the swirling visions filled her mind once more. This time, they were accompanied by a voice, calm, yet commanding. The Dendera Light is not a weapon, nor a tool for domination. It is a seed of enlightenment, meant to illuminate the path to harmony. You have seen the folly of greed. Now, will you use this power to unite or to divide? Menna hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing on her. She glanced at Anhotep, who nodded solemnly. Then we will use it as it was intended, Menna said aloud. To help, not to harm. The artifact's glow spread throughout the chamber, suffusing the air with a sense of peace. The walls began to shimmer, revealing ancient inscriptions that Menna had never seen before. They detailed the true purpose of the light, a beacon of knowledge meant to guide humanity, not control it. As Menna and Anhotep read the inscriptions, they understood how to safely harness the artifact's energy. With its power, they could provide light to the darkest corners of Egypt, improve irrigation for crops, and ease the burden of labor for their people. Together, they activated the artifact's latent functions, channeling its energy into the Nile. The river glowed softly, its waters purified and enriched. Crops along its banks flourished, and the land began to thrive. Word of the Nile's transformation spread quickly, and people from across Egypt came to witness the miracle. Menna and Anhotep, now seen as Hathor's chosen, shared the teachings of the artifact, emphasizing unity and humility. Under their guidance, Egypt entered a golden age. The lessons of the Dendera Light inspired cooperation and innovation, fostering an era of unprecedented prosperity. Yet, Menna knew the light's power was not without its risks. She and Anhotep devised safeguards to ensure it could never be misused again, embedding its wisdom into the temple's carvings for future generations. As Menna stood on the temple's restored steps, watching the people celebrate, she felt a quiet satisfaction. Yet, deep in her heart, she knew the light story was not over. Do you think they'll remember the warnings? She asked Anhotep. Perhaps, Anhotep replied. But human nature is fickle. There will always be those who seek power for themselves. Menna gazed at the horizon, where the first stars of evening began to twinkle. Then we must trust that, when the time comes, the worthy will rise to protect it. Centuries later, the ruins of the Temple of Hathor lay silent, the artifact hidden once more beneath layers of stone and time. Yet, on certain nights, travelers swore they saw a faint golden glow emanating from the temple's heart, a reminder that the Dendera Light, and its mysteries, still watched over the land, waiting for humanity to prove itself once again.